Tattvartha Sutra. It seems that there's a table of contents for each chapter, because they're kind of detailed. And it's a bit of like a reference book. The 5 classes of distinguishing states of the soul and the 8 types of karmas. The states caused by the suppression of karma. States caused by the elimination of 4 destructive or 8 karmas. States caused by the partial elimination and partial suppressions of the destructive karmas. States caused by the rising of 8 types of karmas, innate states. The defining characteristics of the soul and sentience, its kinds and its varieties. The 2 classes of souls, worldly and liberated. Worldly souls, souls with and without physical mind. Mobile and immobile beings, the 5 senses, the domain of the mind, classes of being according to senses. 5 sensed beings with a physical mind, transmigration of worldly beings, the 3 types of birth, the 9 varieties of birthplaces, the species of the 3 types of birth, and the 5 types of body, all 3 genders and lifespans. The first chapter explained the categories of truth that constitute reality. Now, the author turns his attention to the first category, the soul. The state that distinguishes the soul from other substances are due to the suppression of deluding karma, are due to the elimination of 8 types of karma, are mixed because of the partial elimination or impartial suppression of the 4 destructive karmas, are due to the rise of 8 types of karma, constitute the innate nature of the soul. Now, the nature of the soul, the first among the 7 categories of truth, is explained in terms of the states that distinguish it from other substances. This sutra group these states into 5 classes according to karmic processes. The states in the first 4 classes are produced as a result of the soul's interactions with karma, directed by the various processes of karma, and the soul passes through these different states, which generates changes in its nature and which constitutes its worldly career. There are 8 types of karma: knowledge covering intuition, covering sensation producing, deluding, lifespanning determining, body making, status determining, and obstructive. Of these 8 karmas, 1, 2, 4, and 8 are called destructive because they cover or distort the intrinsic qualities of the soul. The remaining 4 are non-destructive. The mixing of karma with the soul is due to the karmic inflow. See 6.1 to 6.2. The binding of the particles of karma to the soul is called bondage. However, this binding is not permanent. The soul has an inherent capacity which can affect how the bondage is ended, thereby affecting its own fate. It can exert power to suppress the karma so that they can remain as inactive sediments. In the soul, this suppression causes the first distinguishing class of states, but if the soul goes further and actually succeeds in eliminating the karma, this brings about the second class of states. It is also possible for the soul to partially eliminate and partially suppress its karma so that the soul becomes like clean water mixed with mud. This generates the third class of states. However, karmic particles have not been eliminated, cannot be suppressed forever. Karmic particles that have not been eliminated cannot be suppressed forever. They must eventually mature and rise up like disturbed sediments to produce their effects. This act of arising of karma generates the 4th class of states. The states of the fifth class are integral to the soul and therefore distinct from its karmic alliance. These innate states will be explained in 2.7. The SBT draws attention to the sixth combined state, a mixture of two or more of the above states, which it says is also mentioned in the scriptures. Although it has size and shape determined by karma, the soul does not possess the material qualities of touch, taste, smell, and color. The five classes of the states cause 2, 9, 18, 21, and 3 states respectively. The enlightened worldview and enlightened conduct. The description of the five classes of the states of the soul begin with the first class. Those caused by suppressing the deluding karmas of the 8 types of karma. Only deluding karma can be suppressed. This karma has 2 varieties: view deluding and conduct deluding. The enlightened worldview referred to in the sutra is due to the suppression of conduct deluding karma in the forms of the 4 tenacious passions of anger, pride, deceit, and greed. And of the 3 subtypes of view deluding karma which cause respectively deluded worldview, near perfect enlightened worldview, and a mixture of enlightened and deluded worldview, enlightened conduct is due to the suppression of conduct deluding karma, specifically the 4 passions. However, both the enlightened worldview and the enlightened conduct are very short-lived in this case, because they are achieved by temporary suppression of the and not the elimination of karma. Furthermore, the enlightened worldview will not come to all. There is no beginning to the transmigration of the soul from birth to birth, and for some there is no end. Not all will attain liberation. Those who are destined to attain liberation are capable of achieving the prerequisite enlightened worldview through suppressing, eliminating, or partially suppressing and partially eliminating the view deluding karma. Once they do this, they have a set period of time left before attaining liberation. The maximum span of this period is equal to half the time it takes for the soul to bind and release all the karmic particles scattered in the cosmos, something it has done in an infinite number of times in its beginningless career. There is a second essential condition for the initial attainment of the enlightened worldview: that the karmas being bound by the soul are of immediate duration. That is the time it takes for them to bind and be released by the soul. It is between 1 intra-hour, just less than 48 minutes. An intra-hour is less than 48 minutes. Okay. And ocean measured periods, OMP, minus ocean measured periods, OMP. Okay. So that's like using the ocean as like a form of measurement. That makes sense. Okay, minus 1 time unit. Furthermore, these intermediate karmas must be stabilized by the spiritual purity of the soul at the duration of 10 OMP minus numerable thousands of OMP. See the appendices 1 and 2 for information about jhana measurements of numbers and time. So there's an appendix here that will enlighten us to that information. The third condition given in the SS for attaining the enlightened worldview is that the soul must be inherently worthy of liberation. It should, moreover, have 5 fully developed senses, a mind, all the maturations, and completely pure. Humans, gods, infernal beings, and subhumans, animals, and plants that fulfill these conditions are capable of attaining the enlightened worldview. There are many others. Factors including memory of the past lives, which are instrumental in achieving the enlightened worldview. The enlightened worldview and enlightened conduct together with knowledge, intuition, beneficence, like benefit and confidence together. Gain, satisfaction, comfort, and power. Now, the states in the second of the 5 distinguishing classes of states are described. In this class, there are 9 states which are generated by the total elimination of the 4 types of destructive karma. The 4 destructive karmas generate 9 states because of their subtypes. That is the 2 varieties of deluding karma: view deluding, and conduct deluding karma, as well as the knowledge covering and intuition covering karma, and the 5 subtypes of obstructing karma: beneficence obstructing, gain obstructing, satisfaction obstructing, comfort obstructing, and power obstructing karma. When these 9 varieties of karma are eliminated, the positive states underlying these karmas become attainable. These are respectively the enlightened worldview, enlightened conduct, omniscience, the pure and perfect intuition, and the abilities to inspire fearlessness, meet one's nutritional needs, create divine surrounding, call up the gods, generate celestial lights, create beautiful gardens. Susie, knock it off. Create celestial gardens. The enlightened worldview, enlightened conduct, omniscience, pure and perfect intuition, and the ability to inspire fearlessness, meet one's nutritional needs, create divine surroundings, call up the gods, generate celestial lights, create beautiful gardens, and produce divine paraphernalia, canopies and thrones, and achieve omnipotence. The above interpretation is only in the SS. However, there is no controversy among the commentators about the soul attaining the first 4 states after it has eliminated the destructive karmas. The other 5 states can be identified with the unimpeded bliss of omniscience. The physical pain and pleasure can, by the arising of the sensation-producing karma, have no effect on the spiritual bliss of the omniscient soul. Translator's notes. The states of the second class are described as those which arise due to the total elimination of the 8 types of karma, yet here the elimination of only the 4 destructive karmas is mentioned. The reason for this apparent inconsistency is that the states of worldly souls is being considered for whom only the elimination of the 4 destructive karmas is possible. The elimination of all types of karmas occurs only on liberation from the worldly life. 4 kinds of knowledge. 3 kinds of deluded knowledge. Knowledge held by a deluded person. 3 kinds of intuition. 5 kinds of potential. And the enlightened worldview, enlightened conduct, partial restraint, and partial non-restraint. These are the states in the 3rd distinguishing class, those due to the partial elimination and the partial suppression of the destructive karma. The 4 kinds of knowledge are empirical, articulate, clairvoyant, and mind-reading. The 3 kinds of deluded knowledge are deluded, empirical, deluded articulate, and deluded clairvoyance. The 3 kinds of intuition are visual, non-visual, and clairvoyance. The 5 kinds of potential are for beneficence, gain, satisfaction, comfort, and power. The enlightened worldview and the enlightened conduct have been explained in partial restraint and partial non-restraint. Is limited self-restraint according to one's capacity. So that's keeping your self-restraint disciplines within your own capacity. And everyone has their own capacity. The karmic particles that are eliminated and suppressed are those which are capable of covering totally the properties of the soul, such as knowledge, intuition, and the enlightened worldview, enlightened conduct, and the potentials. In the partially eliminated and partially suppressed state, the active arising karmic particles are only able to cover partially the properties of the soul and must leave a part of them exposed. There are the common properties of all souls, even the most undeveloped ones. Non-destructive karma, sensation-producing, body-making, status-determining, and lifespan-determining, is not subject to partial elimination or partial suppression. Transmigration in the 4 realms, 4 passions, 3 genders, and the diluted worldview, ignorance, non-restraint, and the unliberated state, and the 6 colorings. Here, the 4th class of the state of the soul, those that are due to the rising of the 8 types of karma, is described. The 4 transmigrations realms are the respective habits of the infernal beings, subhumans, plants, and animals, men, and God. 4 passions are anger, pride, deceit, and greed. The three genders are female, male, and hermaphrodite. The deluded worldview is a perverted understanding of the categories of truth. Ignorance is the state following the active arising of the most intense karma. That covers knowledge, intuition, and the enlightened worldview. Non-restraint is a total absence of self-control. The unliberated state is caused by the active arising of the four non-destructive karmas. The six colorings are black, blue, gray, red, yellow, and white. There are many other states and subtypes of these states, but these 21 are representative of all the others. The following table indicates the types of karma which cause the different states. Transmigration in the four realms. Four passions. Three genders. Body making, conduct deluding sexual disposition. Body making, sexual organs. View deluding, knowledge covering, intuition covering. View deluding, conduct deluding, four non-destructive. Alright, the four states are transmigration in the four realms, four passions, and three genders. Deluded worldview, ignorance, the non-restraint unliberated state, and the six colorings. Being a soul, being worthy of liberation, being unworthy of liberation, and so on, constitute the innate nature of the soul. Here, the fifth and final class of the states of the soul is described. These states are innate and do not result from karmic processes. They may be with or without a beginning. This sutra lists those that are beginningless. According to the SB, the phase and so on in the sutra refers to the attributes such as existence, otherness from the body, capacity to act, capacity to enjoy, and the possession of qualities, non-ubiquity, non-materiality. And of these properties, some are common to all substances, and some are exclusive to either sentient substances or non-sentient ones. Media of motion in the rest space and matter. The three attributes explicitly mentioned are exclusively to the soul. Sentience is the defining characteristics of the soul. Having described the various states of the soul generated by karma, the author now defines soul with regards to its essential quality. Sentience is awareness and consciousness. It is twofold, knowledge and intuition. The soul is never bereft of sentience. However, feeble and indistinct, this may be in undeveloped organisms. So all souls sentient, even if their senses are undeveloped. And this could include subhumans and plants. Sentience is of two kinds. The first have 8 varieties and the second has 4. The two kinds of sentience are determined and undetermined. Determined sentience is knowledge, and undetermined sentience is intuition. Sentience as knowledge has 8 varieties: empirical, articulate, clairvoyant, mind-reading, omniscient, and deluded empirical, and deluded articulate, and deluded clairvoyant. Sentience as intuition has 4 varieties: visual, non-visual, clairvoyant, and omniscient. Non-visual intuition uses senses other than sight. According to some thinkers, however, it occurs independently of the senses. The SS mentions the fact, as does the SB in 1.31, that although knowledge and intuition cannot occur simultaneously in souls that are not omniscient, they can in those that are. Translator's notes. Jaina thinkers accept unanimously that knowledge and intuition cannot occur simultaneously in souls that are not omniscient. However, there is a divergence of view as to whether or not they occur simultaneously in omniscient souls. Souls are divided into 2 broad classes: worldly beings and liberated souls. This sutra begins the classification of souls. Worldly beings transmigrate from one birth to another. The transmigration has no beginning, but it ends if the soul is liberated. The transmigration of worldly beings is explained in the SS with respect to the 5 types of change, namely changes in the clusters of matter, space units, time units, realms of birth and states, The change of the clusters of matter is the soul's absorption and subsequent release of all material particles in cosmic space an infinite number of times. The change of space units refers to the soul's occupation of each space unit in cosmic space at some time in its various lives. A soul's occupation sometimes spreads over a limited number of space units and sometimes over the entire cosmic space, as is the case in omniscient soul enjoying the effect of sensation producing karma in the short time period before liberation. The change of the time units refers to the soul's succession of births and deaths in each time unit in each ascending and descending aeon in the recurring cycles of time. The changes of the realms of birth refers to the soul's frequent transmigration from one realm of birth to another, from the lowest hell up to the neck-dwelling heavens, due to its diluted worldview. The change of the states of the soul is defined by the type, duration, intensity, and quality of effect and material mass of the soul's karma due to its diluted worldview. The worldly souls fall into two groups: souls that possess a mind and souls that do not. Only souls that possess a mind have the power of thought. Souls which are said to have a mind are those with both a psychic and physical mind. Those with a psychic mind but no physical mind are said to be without a mind, like plants, as this book refers to. In SBT, the psychic mind is attributed to the partial elimination and partial suppression of the karma, which obscures articulate knowledge. According to the SS, it is the result of partial elimination and partial suppression of both the mind covering knowledge covering karma and energy obstructing karma. The physics mind finds expression as a consciousness, awareness, sensation, attention, and so on. The SS explains that the physical mind is the result of actively arising karma. The physical mind is made of material particles and has a size and location. The physical mind is the essential aid to the psychic's mind's potential for thought. Memory is only possible for souls with a physical mind. For further description of the mind. Translator's notes. In modern parlance, the physical mind is the brain and the psychic mind is the capacity and the activity of the brain. However, in the Jaina view, it is the psychic mind that creates the physical mind, not vice versa. Furthermore, the physical mind is made of very subtle matter. According to SBT, it pervades the whole body of the being. In another view, the location of the mind changes with the location of attention. In yet another view, the heart is the seat of the mind, which has the shape of a tiny 8-pillated lotus. Interesting. A lotus. An 8-petaled lotus. I said pillated, petaled. The worldly souls are further classified as mobile and immobile beings. Mobile beings can move from one place to another. Immobile beings cannot move themselves from one place to another and are all one-sensed organisms. Plants. Things rooted. The earth-bodied, water-bodied, and plant-bodied souls are immobile beings. The earth-bodied, water-bodied, fire-bodied, air-bodied, and plant-bodied souls are immobile beings. There are many varieties of earth-bodied, water-bodied, and plant-bodied souls. For instance, raw soil or clods of earth, particles of dust, sand, raw minerals are earth-bodied beings. Snow, ice, rain, and so on are water-bodied beings. For further details on the immobile bodies, see 2.14. The classifications of beings as mobile and immobile is only formal in the reference to body-making karma. The automatic movement for the maintenance of life does not qualify as being as mobile. This term refers to those that are capable of voluntary movement. For this reason, the SS variety of this sutra includes the fire-bodied and the air-bodied as immobile beings. When souls are born with bodies made of material clusters of earth, soil, stone, copper, salt, they are called earth-bodied. When their bodies are made of water clusters, they are called water-bodied, and so on. When these elements are abandoned by their resident souls and assume an inanimate state, they are called earth bodies. Another variety, called earth soul, is defined as a soul that is destined to occupy a body of earth, a body made of earth. Fire and air, as well as those with two or more senses, are immobile beings. Those with two or more senses are mobile beings. Only beings with at least two senses are genuinely mobile creatures. The SBT explains that the fire-bodied and air-bodied do not move of their own accord, and as such, truly speaking, do not belong to the class of mobile creatures. In the SS, the element of vitality is added to explain the nature of all beings, however many senses they have. There are 10 vitalities in all. Wait, 1 second. Those with two or more senses are mobile beings. Only beings with at least two senses are genuinely mobile creatures. The SBT explains that with fire-bodied and air-bodied do not move of their own accord, and as such, truly speaking, do not belong to the class of mobile creatures. In the SS, the element of vitality is added to explain the nature of all beings. However many senses they have, there are 10 vitalities in all. Sense of touch, body, respiration, lifespan, sense of taste, faculty of speech, sense of smell, sense of sight, sense of hearing, rationality. The table below gives the number of vitalities for life forms classed according to the number of senses they possess. 1 sensed, 2 sensed, 3 sensed, 4 sensed, 5 sensed, non-irrational, and 5 sensed irrational. There are 5 senses. This sutra begins the description of the senses and their sphere of operation. The 5 senses are touch, skin, so touch is of skin, taste is of tongue, and smell is of nose, and seeing is of eye, and hearing is of ear. There are 2 kinds of senses. The senses can be viewed in 2 ways. Senses are clusters of matter, and senses are modes of the soul. The senses as clusters of matter have a dual nature as the physical organs themselves, and as the capacity of those organs to perceive. The senses are as modes of the soul are as dual in nature, sentient potential, and sentient application. Sentient potential is the capacity of the soul to apply physical senses. The SB explains the sentient potential is released by the act of arising of the body-making karma, and also the partial elimination and partial suppression of knowledge covering karma. The SS affirms this latter cause but does not mention the former. It identifies sentient applications with the striving of the soul to produce the physical senses. Touch and the like are the objects of sentient application. Sentient application relates to the empirical knowledge, cognition. That is the perception of touch, taste, smell, color, and sound by the senses. It does not relate to the articulate knowledge, because this is not possible by the senses alone, somebody has to speak it. Nor does it relate to the clairvoyance, mind reading, or omniscience, because they do not use the senses at all. The SB describes sentient application as attention, specific mental clarity, the continuing identity and transformation of the soul. The SBT describes it as both the perception of external objects and the experience of one's own pleasures and pains. The SB explains that a sense as a physical organ is a necessary condition of a sense, as the capacity to perceive and a sentient application. However, a sense as sentient potential lies at the root of the other three varieties of senses. All four varieties of senses, the first two related to the substances and the latter two related to the modes, are necessary for perception to occur. The senses are sentient application, are not senses in the true meaning of the word. The term is used figuratively. There is no substantial difference between sentient application and perception, which is the result of four varieties of the senses. The five senses are skin, tongue, nose, ear, and eye. The objects of the five senses are respectively touch, taste, smell, sound, and color. Articulate knowledge, the scriptural lore, is the domain of the internal organ. Having defined the domain of the senses, the domain of the mind is now defined. Articulate knowledge here understands as the inner and outer corpus of the scriptures, is the subject matter of the internal organs, that is, the mind. The SBT gives it an alternative explanation in which articulate knowledge is said to be empirical knowledge, cognition, beginning with the stage of specific inquiry. The empirical knowledge is by the mind and not by any sense organ such as the ear or eye. It is a mental perception that understands the scripture. The classes of being up to the air-bodied ones have only the sense of touch. The classes of beings up to the plant-bodied ones have only the sense of touch. Now, having described the 9 senses of beings, earth, water, fire, air, plants, 2 sensed, 3 sensed, 4 sensed, and 5 sensed, and also having mentioned the 5 kinds of senses, the author distributes the senses according to the classes of beings. There are variants in the wording of the sutra because the variety in sutras 2.13 and 2.14 in the listed order of the first 5 classes of beings. However, all the commentators are saying the same thing, that these 5 classes, earth, water, plant, fire, and air body beings, have only the sense of touch. Worms and the like, ants and the like, bees and the like, humans and the like have an additional sense progressively. They have 2, 3, 4, and 5 senses respectively. So ants have 2, bees have 3. Worms have 2, ants have 3, bees have 4, and humans have 5. The following table shows the varieties of elemental bodies: plants, animals, humans, infernals, and gods in the number of senses they possess. 1 sense: earth, water, fire, air, plant bodied. 2 senses: touch and taste. Worms, leeches, oysters, mussels, snails. These are 2 senses. 3 senses: some mini beasts, such as ants, fleas, plant lice, cottonseed insects, termites, and centipedes. 4 senses: touch, taste, smell, and sight. Some mini beasts, such as wasps, flies, gnats, mosquitoes, butterflies, moths, and scorpions. 5 senses: larger animals, such as fish, bird, and quadrupeds. Humans, infernals, and gods. Souls were classified as those that have a physical mind and those that do not. All beings with less than 5 senses are born through agglutination, material particles joining together, and as such are devoid of a physical mind. Among the possessed of 5 senses, again, there are 2 categories: those that are born through agglutination, and as such are devoid of a mind, and those that are born of the womb and have a mind. As noted in 2.11, Being without a physical mind are said to be without a mind, although all beings have a psychic mind, that is, an awareness and experience of sensation. This differs from the pure consciousness of the soul, because the physical mind has an element of matter in it. Those that have minds are intelligent beings. This sutra explains the unique quality of those that have a physical mind. Intelligence or rationality means the capacity to remember the past and ponder the future. Only the five-sensed beings who have a mind have this capacity. So human beings and animals born of the womb, the gods and the infernals, are rational beings. This excludes humans and five-sensed animals born by agglutination, asexual reproduction through material particles coalescing. I think that would include like lab-made babies, not test tube babies, but maybe lab-made. Like, I've always wondered. I mean, at what point in our lifetime they'll be able to use artificial wombs to create babies? The SB differentiates between intelligence as thoughtful knowledge and intelligence as subconsciously motivated behavior. Intelligence as thoughtful knowledge is engaged in judging objects and situations that arise in the wake of specific inquiry. Intelligence as subconsciously motivated behavior is the survival instincts concerned with acquiring food, resorting to fight or flight, sexual activity, and provision for the future. That's possessiveness. If the soul makes one or more turns when it is transit after death, the only activity is that of its karmic body. Having dealt with the senses and mind of the soul, we now turn to its worldly career transmigrating from one life to the next. The SBT distinguishes two varieties of transit. Transit from one place to another and transit from which is transformation in one place. The second variety takes place when the soul is reborn in the same body after death. Death is defined as the exhaustion of the lifespan karma and active arising of new lifespan karma. Rebirth in the same body may occur in the single-celled organisms cohabited by many souls. Both varieties of transit. I gotta take this phone call. This might be a bit. We'll see if I'm back. Hello? Excuse me for that lapse in presentation. That's not ideal. If the soul makes one or more turns when it is in transit after death, the only activity is that of its karmic body. Having dealt with the senses and mind of the soul, we now turn to its worldly career, transmigrating from one life to the next. The SBT distinguishes two varieties of transit: transit from one place to another, and transit which is transformation in one place. The second variety takes place when the soul is reborn in the same body after death. The death is defined as the exhaustion of the lifespan karma and active arising of new lifespan karma. Rebirth in the same body may occur in single-celled organisms cohabited by many souls. Both varieties, single-celled organisms cohabited by many souls. Wow. That's mind-blowing. Here, our main concern is transit from one place to another. According to SB, when the soul is in transit from one birth to another, it is neither a gross body, physical mass, speech, organs, or a mind, and so naturally the activities of the body, speech, and mind are absent. The motion of the soul in transit, however, may be straight or with one or more turns. When the soul goes in a straight line to the place of rebirth, the impetus is provided by the previous body at the time of death. But if the soul has to make a turn during its transit to maintain momentum, it needs a fresh impetus from the subtle karmic body that always accompanies it. On reaching the place of birth, the soul creates a new gross body through the power of its past karma. The SS interprets the sutra in different ways. During a transit to another body, the karmic bodies of the soul absorb clusters of karmic matter, but cannot absorb those clusters needed for speech, mind, gross bodies. So I presume if we were to, let's just say hypothetically, if society were to outlaw new births and humans were not allowed to procreate at all, and let's just say they didn't at all, like everyone adhered to this for some reason, I would presume that souls would, many well-developed souls would take place within animal bodies. That makes sense to me. Motion is in a straight line along the rows of the space units. This sutra describes the motion of the soul in a transit after death and of material particles and clusters. The rows of space units run in the straight lines from east to west, north to south, and also up and down. The SS says that the transit of the worldly souls is always in a straight line, upwards or downwards to the different realm or horizontally to another place in the same realm. The transit of the liberated soul is always in a straight line. The motion of the material particles and cluster towards the border of the cosmos is also in a straight line. Any deviation from this law are due to the influence of external factors, never the traveler's own effort. The rotation of the luminous body, such as the sun and moon, is not governed by this law. The liberated souls always move in a straight line without any turn. This describes the motion of the disembodied liberated soul from one place of liberation to the horizontal plane at the top of the cosmic space, where liberated souls dwell. That sounds like heaven to me. I think he just described heaven. I'm going to read it again. This describes the motion of the disembodied liberated soul, like so someone died, from the place of liberation to the horizontal plane at the top of the cosmic space, where liberated souls dwell. This place is parallel to the horizontal plane in the middle of the cosmos where humans dwell, as only humans can be liberated. The human soul goes up from the human plane to the plane of the liberation without any turn, to arrive and occupy space units that exactly parallel the space units of the soul's place of departure. So this, as well as a very fiery preacher man in San Francisco once told me, is saying that animals do not go to heaven. They have more, well, this is saying that they have more along, they have more of a journey for their soul to transmigrate through different forms, which would include humanality, before they ascend to this cosmic space where liberated souls dwell. In transit, the worldly soul may make up to 3 turns. I was so disappointed when because my dog had just died, right? And I'm in San Francisco, and this guy's like, he's yelling at people because he's preaching, and I just wanted to ask him, like, I was like, hey, my dog just died. Will she be there when I get to heaven? He's like, no. I was like, it was so disappointing to me. It was about 10 years ago. All right, in transit, the worldly soul, but this offered more of an explanation, and I appreciate that. In transit, the worldly soul may make up to 3 turns. The path of transmigrating worldly soul may be straight line without any turn, or path with 1, 2, or 3. I'm so excited to read other books. We're going to be reading the Tibetan Book of the Dead. We're going to go back into the Quran because we kind of like been taking a break from the Quran, not to any fault of its own. And then I'm going to read Dianetics. It's time to read Dianetics. I had it sitting on the shelf for a long time. Okay. The path of the transmigrating soul may be a straight line without any turn, or a path with 1, 2, or 3 turns. These 4 alternatives are illustrated by figures 3 to 6 on page 49. I'll show you that in a second. The polygonal outline of these figures represents the shape of the cosmic space beyond which lies transcosmic space. This cosmic space often necessitates turns, as the soul cannot travel through transcosmic space, which has no medium or of motion, the substance necessary for all movement. Movement. Transit without turning. When the space units of departure after death and the space units of arrival for the new birth are situated in the same vertical row, the path of transit is a straight line without turn. Transit with 1 turn, when the space units of the departure are situated on the vertical border of the lower region of the cosmos, and the soul has to reach a point in the middle of the upper region. It has to first travel horizontally. This is the illustrated figure of the turns and transits of the soul. So we have in figure 2, arrival, departure. Figure 3, arrival, departure. Arrival, departure. Arrival, turn, departure. Arrival with a turn. Interesting. Imagine these souls have been through a lot. The transits with one turn when the space units of departure are situated on the vertical border of the lower region of the cosmos, and the soul has to reach a point in the middle or upper region. It has first to travel horizontally to reach the place directly below the new space units and then make one turn before traveling straight up to its destination. Transits with two turns. If I wrote a book like this and I wanted to sell it to people, I would specifically write in the book something like, all those who have this book you're reading, are highly ascended. I would put that right in the book, just to put a little pat on the back to those reading my book. That's just me, though. To reach the place directly below the new space units and then make one turn before traveling straight up to its destination. Transits with two turns. When the space units of departure are off-center in the lowest region of the cosmos and the soul is traveling to a destination near the center of the middle region, the shape of the cosmos dictates that it must travel vertically till it reaches the vertical border of the lower region, turn and travel horizontally till it's directly below the space units of its destination, turn and travel straight up to its destination. Transit, which with three turns. When the space units of departure are off-center in the lower region of the cosmos and the destination is in the higher heavens, the soul travels up till it meets the vertical border of the cosmos and turns and travels horizontally until it's able to turn and continue its journey upwards. Then turn again when it is on the plane of the higher region and travels horizontally to the space units directly above its space units of departure. It impresses me, like, whoever wrote this, like, with the amount of detail and, like... So we're halfway through chapter 2. The previous time, it took us an hour, a little bit more than that, to read chapter 1. And it's taken us a little bit less than an hour to read halfway through chapter 2. And we're gonna pick this up again. We shall add another $2 to our book reading celebration fund. Yeah. It has just been announced that Floyd Mayweather will be having an exhibition rematch against John Gotti's grandson for whatever reason. I mean, I'm going to watch it because it's Floyd Mayweather. But, yeah, that's where we're at right now. There's going to be a press conference for that tomorrow. 3 minutes ago, somebody said it's 11:11. Thank you for keeping me up to date with the time. I really like this book. I really like this book too. You have the full reading of this one. It took 3 hours. Some of the ideas, like this, just seems like a more detailed version of this. This is Jainism, by the way. It's one of the oldest organized philosophies, and this is Bhagavad Gita, and this is Hinduism. You have Jainism, and what other book are we reading? There's another book that's on this list too. Well, of course, we're going to read the Tibetan Book of the Dead. Thank you for tuning in, especially you, and much love to everybody. This has been another broadcast from Canine Training plus Human Development with Adonis.